Good afternoon to everyone. Today I will read a sutta, a very interesting sutta, very short, but full of meaning. And I will use the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation. So the sutta is from the Anguttara Nikaya, book 4, and the sutta is 254. Uh, with this sutta start this chapter that it calls direct knowledge. And I will read first without any comment, and then I read again and I will comment. So, because there are these four things, what for? There are things to be fully understood by direct knowledge. There are things to be abandoned by direct knowledge. There are things to be developed by direct knowledge. There are things to be realized by direct knowledge. And what, bhikkhus, are the things to be fully understood by direct knowledge? The five aggregate subjects to clinging, these are called the things to be fully understood by direct knowledge. And what are the things to be abandoned by direct knowledge? Ignorance and craving for existence, these are called the things to be abandoned by direct knowledge. And what are the things to be developed by direct knowledge? Serenity and insight. These are called the things to be developed by direct knowledge. And what are the things to be realized by direct knowledge? True knowledge and liberation. These are called the things to be realized by direct knowledge. These bhikkhus are the four things. So it's very interesting. And let's read again now. And I share some thoughts about the sutta. Because there are four things. What for? There are things to be fully understood by direct knowledge. There are things to be abandoned by direct knowledge. There are things to be developed by direct knowledge. And there are things to be realized by direct knowledge. Here the Buddha is show these four things that are the Four Noble Truths, but with a different, from a different perspective. And then, let's see, the first one. And what bhikkhus are the things to be fully understood by direct knowledge? The five aggregates subject to clinging. These are called the things to be fully understood by direct knowledge. So, here the sutta is show that the five aggregate, feeling, perception, sorry, body, the body formation, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness are the five aggregates of the conscious of the five aggregates. So in the sutta, in the translation, Bhikkhu Bodhi said that these are the five aggregates of clinging, but also will be a very good aspect to highlight that is also the five aggregate of craving and clinging. So this is the first noble truth. And in the Samadhiti Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, number 9, after the Venerable Sariputta described what is the first noble truth of suffering, he finally says that the five aggregates are suffering. This seemed a little a little pessimistic, but we have to understand that these five aggregates are five processes that are, of course, unstable, So every time that we make contact with some of these five aggregates, we are going to realize that there is an origin for any one of these, and there is a cessation of every one of these. So they are unstable. The bodily formation have has some nourishment, that is the food that we need to uh, take to continue our life in this plane. And this is a sort of the condition to the bodily formation continuous in the existence. Sensation or feeling, sorry, feeling, perception, and formations, the cause and condition of that is contact. And consciousness have different, could be, can be different conditions. Uh, Name and form, namarupa, are the condition to consciousness arises. So these processes are intertwined, and this is a way that the Buddha used to describe what is a being. And it's very interesting because this is describe a process that are always changing. So there is instability, like I said before, and that is the reason that inside of this, or as a result, we're going to find eventually suffering. For give some very simple examples. Our form as a child is not the same as an adolescent or as an adult or even as a old people. Feeling is changing everything. In fact, the Buddha compare the feeling as a bubble in the surface of a river. So, or a bubble of foam is very quickly and arises and disappears very quickly. Perception is like a mirage. So perception is always regarding uh, with contact and with feeling, and of course is the mental process that put names to everything, that label the event, label the feeling. But this is always conditioned by previous experience. Mental formations, I don't remember the simile now, and consciousness are like a magician, like a wizard that always is make uh, tricks on us, because consciousness is dependent upon name and form, yes, but mentality, materiality, but also have some conditions with the sankharas. So, depending upon that sankharas, consciousness will arise. And and then we have that our experience, our present experience, will be look like regarding our previous experience. So the consciousness is not something that only recognize what is going on in the present moment, but also add something regarding our previous experience. So this five aggregate are always changing. So it's very interesting because in this sutta the Buddha is put the first noble truth, dukkha, to the five aggregates. And then, like I said before, anicca, instability, impermanence, now dukkha, and the last aspect is anatta. So the five aggregates are process subject to causes and conditions, and we cannot find anything that is the self in, out, inside, or outside. That is the 20 visions regarding the five aggregates, because they are always changing. So where is the self? Generally, when I present this teaching to some student, uh, I don't want to the student believe me, because they have to experience by themselves. And here the sutta is saying something really important. The first is there are things to be fully understood by direct knowledge. So this is the first one. So the bhikkhu or the meditator have to understand the five aggregates by themselves. We can explain some aspects, we can put some light, we can guide the people through the path, but the meditator have to realize by themselves. This is really important, because this is a strong aspect of the Buddha's teachings. So it's only by our experience that we can gain gain direct knowledge by our direct experience. And the Buddha here is presenting the Four Noble Truths in a different manner, the different way. But it's always insisting, he's always insisting in you have to see by yourself. This cannot be uh, imposed from the outside. So the Buddha is invited to the meditator to see by himself this first noble truth, dukkha. And the the landscape or the object of meditation that he gave us is the five aggregates. So if we start to meditate, and we have as an object of meditation like any of the Brahma Viharas, with that mind we can see after some uh, time, if we practice consistently and regularly, we can start to see these causes and conditions that arises in the five aggregates. And little by little, we going to understand that this process, these five processes, are absolutely impersonal. We don't have control of any of the five aggregates. We have to understand, and that is the instruction of the Buddha, these five processes. And then, when we understand the arising, what is any of these five aggregates, the arising and the passing away, and the path that lead to this uh, cessation, we are not engaged with these five aggregates, and somehow we are going to feel free of them. Of course, this is the mind of an arahant, but in the previous supramundane path, the practitioner is little by little developing his mind or her mind to understand these five aggregates and see in which of these, in any moment, arise some kind of identification. And what are the things to be abandoned by direct knowledge? Ignorance and craving for existence. These are called the things to be abandoned by direct knowledge. Well, here the Buddha is presenting the second noble truth. In this case, uh, the first one is dukkha, suffering. There is suffering in life. And the second one is tanha, thirst. That here is the Buddha saying ignorance and craving. So it's very interesting because this, this second noble truth is show us something. First of all, that ignorance and craving are things to be abandoned. So anytime that in our mind, let me put in a different way, more practical. We are meditating, or we want to start to meditate, and we choose an object of meditation, and we start. And if we choose metta, loving kindness, we feel a very comfortable feeling in our mind and in our body. But at some moment, some hindrance arises, and when that happens, at that moment, when the hindrance arises, there is a little, very small contraction in the head, sometimes in the body, and that is the manifestation of craving. And that is very important because it's really helping us the perception of this contraction, because not always is so easy to see craving. So the physical manifestation is a very important resource for the meditator. And then as soon as I see this contraction, I can recognize that contraction. Maybe this contraction uh, arises in the form of doubt, restlessness, sloth and torpor, uh, uh, sensual desire, or aversion, or any of the other not hindrances, but the other defilements, fear, or whatever it might be. So I recognize that in my mind, some unwholesome state arise, and I have to release that. And then I relax. I relax the mind, I relax the head, and I relax the body. When when I feel that relaxation, I will feel that something is more open, calm, and then I'm going to smile. And with that smile and with that sense or feeling of calmness and spaciousness, I return to my object of meditation and I repeat the process that stay with the object of meditation. So this process, right effort, the 6 R's, is a process in which the meditator recover their mindfulness and develop his mind or her mind. When I relax, the third R, when I relax, at that moment, I feel nirodha, the cessation of craving. But in the previous hours, when I recognize that my mind was moved from one thing to another, at that moment, the first R is really important because when I remember, when I recognize that, oh, my mind is movement, my mind was moved, at that moment, ignorance is start to fading away. Why? Because when I can see with proper wisdom that my mind change, that the condition of the mind changes and then move to another object, I start to see this movement. For that, I need some kind or some level of mindfulness. And mindfulness, sati, is remember. So at that moment, I remember what I remember. I remember the first step of the noble path, that there are conditionality, that there are causes and conditions to anything in the world. So at that moment, when I recognize, I start the ignorance start to fade away. I release, and then when I release that hindrance, the mind start to feel more relaxed. When I uh, arrive to the third R, relax, then I relax the remnant tension that is in my mind and in my body and in my head. And then I can let it go, ignorance and craving. So anytime that I or anybody identify with anything, that is avijja, ignorance. And in the formula of the dependent origination, the ignorance is the first step. And I think his craving is in all of the links of a conditioned mind, but always ignorance cast a shadow over all of the process, all over the process. Because ignorance is something like we can't see ignorance. We can act ignorance, but we can see. When we can see, ignorance is disappeared. The word ignorance comes from Latin and is related to uh, something that uh, is in the dark. So when I remember again, when I recover my mindfulness and I remember that the mind moves from one thing to another, the ignorance fade away because recognize, remember brings light to my mind. So we have in this way I can, when I recognize, I abandon ignorance at that moment. When I relax, I abandon craving at that moment. When I return to my object of meditation, let's see what the sutta said. And what are the things to be developed by direct knowledge? Serenity and insight. These are called the things to be developed by direct knowledge. Well, here is very interesting because here the Buddha is putting the Four Noble Truths, that is serenity and insight. Serenity and insight are twin, tranquil wisdom, insight, meditation, and they are developed together. And for the purpose of developed twin, we have to keep the precept and be generous. So here, serenity and insight are part and of the Eightfold Noble Path, are the Four Noble Truths. So we have to develop our mind to be able to understand what is suffering, to be able to abandon ignorance and craving. And for that, we need a mind that is very sharp, very gentle, and very open, because we don't want to be anger or have aversion to the word. We have to understand the word itself. And the word itself is the five aggregates. our five aggregates or any of the four elements and the immaterial worlds too that is outside. So we have to understand the cause and conditions of the samsara itself. That is, I think, is condensed in the five aggregates as a mode or a way to expose this uh, this concept. So when we develop um serenity and insight together, we gradually we're going to develop our mind and see the things as really are. So mindfulness will be stronger, equanimity will be stronger, and with these two powerful tools, we can see by direct knowledge, understand, and finally let it go. The fourth one. And what are the things to be realized by direct knowledge? True knowledge and liberation. These are called the things to be realized by direct knowledge. These bhikkhus are the four things. So here, true knowledge and liberation is the third noble truth. So it is Nirodha. So it's very interesting. I think that the Venerable Buddhadasa, a Thailand monk of the 20th century, also sometimes presents the Four Noble Truths in this way. Uh, in this case, we see that the first noble truth, the cause, is the second, and in this way, the third, uh, the third aspect here, serenity and insight, is the tool to achieve liberation, nirodha. So again, here in the four aspect that we are talking about, the Buddha instruct us to see by direct knowledge. Is we cannot understand these things by explanations, by reading the sutta. Of course, the explanation that our teacher give us and the sutta will share a lot of light. These are very powerful scriptures that were uh, written or and organized by arahant, so they understand very clear how human minds works, and then this will help us, but is through our practice, through our meditation, our development on serenity and insight twin. So in the meditation or in any activity that we do in our daily life, every time that we apply the 6 R's, right effort, we are training our mind to abandon ignorance and craving. And gradually, we are develop a deeper understanding, a deeper serenity and collectedness, a deeper mindfulness. And this will emerge in our mind as equanimity. So we don't have to feel bad when we have some very active meditation, because if we sit by for an hour and we have to apply the 6 R's 50 times, we we are taking 50 good decisions because we choose to abandon our craving and our ignorance. Of course, it's not comfortable, this kind of active meditations, but we have to trust in this process because this process will uh, eventually will start to show us a different perspective of the world, a different perspective from ourselves, a different perspective from for the life itself. And it's in this gradual process that the mind will will be liberated. I hope you enjoyed this talk. I will now share the screen. We can share some merit. May suffering once be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kind of happiness. May beings inhabiting space on earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May the Lord protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, and I see you next time. Metta for everyone.